Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Alhamdulillah, today is the 98th session of Seerah Khatam al-Nabiyyin sallallahu alayhi wasallam, where we're going over the life of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam step by step, inshaAllah ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept this from us and give us tawfiq to practice what we learn in our lives, inshaAllah ta'ala. So last week we started on the incident of Battle of Khandaq or Ahzab, excuse me, the Battle of Khandaq or the Ahzab, and we talked about how this was in the 5th year of Shawwal of the 5th year of Hijri, and we talked about Hizb itself. The word itself basically means like a group of people, or confederate is another term used to translate that. And this is the Hizb is a mufrad of Ahzab being a bunch of groups together or confederates together. And we talked about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions two groups in the Quran, Hizbullah wa Hizb Shaitan, the group of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the group of Shaitan, and giving us a little bit of details of some characteristics of these two groups. Hizb Shaitan, the ones that Shaitan has taken hold over them, or taken a control over them, and causing them to forget the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is the group of Shaitan, and they are the ones who are bound to lose. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that at the end they will always lose. No matter how much we think they have the power, how much wealth they have, or how much they have control over the world or whatnot, but at the end they are bound to lose. Hizbullah, on the other hand, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes two basically main characteristics of the Hizbullah. And number one, that they are not loyal to the enemies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even if these enemies may be their brothers, their fathers, their sons, their daughters, anyone in the immediate family or close to them. They are not loyal to them because those people are the enemies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the second characteristic of the Hizbullah is that they ally themselves with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the messengers sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and the believers. So this is Hizbullah wa Hizb Shaitan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to be from Hizbullah, inshaAllah ta'ala. I talked about how basically prior to the battle, how it started was Banu Nadir. So there was 3 Jewish tribes living in Medina Munawwara. 2 of them were banished thus far up to the Battle of Khandaq, being Banu Qurayza and Banu Nadir. These 2 tribes were banished, and they were gone. Basically most of them went to Khaybar, which is about 2 hours drive from Medina Munawwara. And we talked about how they always wanted revenge, and they always wanted to basically take back what they lost when they had left. So because of that, they instigated this war, they instigated this battle against the Muslims. Now, we talked about how they went to the Quraysh, and they went to another tribe by the name of Banu Ghatafan. And Quraysh, we know that they already had animosity against the Muslims. They already wanted to attack the Muslims. Banu Ghatafan also had animosity against the Muslims. Being non-Muslim, they wanted to fight the Muslims, and there was one incident where we talked about how there was rumors that they were going to attack. The Prophet went out towards their direction, and they did not show up. They dispersed. Basically, they left all intentions of attacking the Muslims out of fear of the Muslims. So in this battle of Khandaq, the Banu Nadir comes to them and bribes them, basically, or you could say hires them as mercenaries, or hires them as hired guns, as they say that they told them that we'll give you half the produce of Khaybar. And I talk about how Khaybar, if you go there, visit there, you'll see acres and acres of date palms, and it's amazing how much they had. So they basically told them that we'll give you half of the produce of this year of dates if you come and join and you come and attack with us. So Ghatafan also joined. We talk about how the Quraysh brought forth 4,000 soldiers, and the Banu Ghatafan brought forth 6,000 soldiers. So this is the largest army that has attacked, or the Muslims had stood against so far. Badr 313 versus 1,000. Then we have Uhud, we have 700 versus 3,000, and this is a Khandaq where we have Muslims were about 3,000 in number, 2,500 to 3,000 in number versus 10,000. Okay, so 4 times their amount. So this is the largest enemy that the Muslims have ever seen. Now we talked about how when the news had reached Medina, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes this in Surah Ahzab, that how the state of the believers and the state of munafiqeen. Okay, and basically this is natural to have fear. But there's a difference. The munafiqeen had panic, fear and panic, and the Muslims, on the other hand, it increased them in iman. That they had tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they had that iman, and it increased them in iman that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help us inshallah ta'ala. So that's described in how there was, the believers were put to a test, and they were violently shaken. And this is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests the believers over and over again. This is not just He lets us go, but He tests us to see who is the strong, who is the one who are sincere in their belief and in their in their actions, and then who is the ones who are the dirt, or you could say the impurities that are separated from the pure. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests the Muslims in this way. So going on, we talked about how, sorry, I didn't talk about this here, but the Prophet ﷺ, as he always does, in the Battle of Badr, we talked about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that وَشَاوِرْهُمْ بِالْأَمْرِ, that give or take advice from them, take shura from them. Even though the Prophet ﷺ is a Nabi, he is a messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he doesn't need anyone's help, he doesn't need anyone's shura or counsel. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is commanding the Prophet ﷺ to take shura from the Sahaba. So this is one thing we learn, again, is that shura, counsel, is a sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And we should do this not only in the matters of the masjid, in the matters of da'wah, in the matters of work and everything, meetings at work, for example, be it a hospital, be it like a Ford Motor Company or whatever it is, they always have meetings. You always have counsel, talking to each other, doing istishara, what should we do? So not only that, but we should do it also in the home. So day-to-day activities, with the children, with the spouse, sit down and have a shura, inshallah ta'ala. So again, the Prophet ﷺ conducts shura, council, with the Sahaba to ask them that there's a large army of this size, 10,000, that we have never seen in the past. So what should we do? What do you guys think we should do? And again, the Sahaba being, again overwhelmed with this large number of army. How are we gonna defend ourselves? They're 4 times our size and whatnot. So they're thinking of different ways what we can do. And there was one particular Sahabi by the name of Salman al-Farsi radhiyallahu anhu. He gave the idea. He put the idea forth that we should dig a trench. So basically, he's from Faris, he's from Persia, and he said that what we would do in Persia, if there's a large army of this size would come, then we would dig a trench around the area so that we could protect ourselves. And the Prophet ﷺ accepted this shura, he accepted this counsel, he liked this counsel, and he commanded the Sahaba to start preparations for digging this trench. Now, just a brief bio of Salman radhiyallahu anhu. I'm not going to go into too much detail. We can talk about that some other time, inshallah, in detail. But we know that Salman radhiyallahu anhu was from Persia, and from the Persian there were Magians, which were fire worshippers. Okay, so they were mushrikeen, they were fire worshippers, and Salman radhiyallahu anhu was actually put in charge. So he was a son of one of the governors of Persia, and again being very wealthy and stuff, and he was also as a child put in charge of the fire itself, so that the thing that they're worshipping, he's put in charge to take care of it. Okay, so he's making sure that it doesn't, it stays lit, so it doesn't go out. So he's doing this, and we talked Salman radhiyallahu, so in the hadith he talks about how in detail how one day he went out to run an errand for his father. He got caught up where he saw a church where people were worshipping, and these people of that time, that church of the time, they could be said to be Nestorian. So there's we know there's different sects of Christianity, and basically around, I think it was 300 AD, 300 years after Isa alayhi salam, that's when the Roman Emperor Constantine became Muslim. Okay, where Constantinople or Istanbul is named after him. He was one of the famous emperors of the Roman Empire. He became a Christian, and then that's when the entire Roman Empire became Muslim. So they had the Roman churches and stuff, and around 325, I believe it was 325, where they had the meeting of Nicaea, where they actually sat down to put their beliefs on paper, because there were so many different sects and beliefs at that time. So they sat down and they started putting together okay, we believe in the Trinity and divine nature of Isa alayhi salam and whatnot. One certain group, the Nestorians, I believe it was Nestor was the name of the founder of this, or you could say one of the leaders of this sect, where they believed that Isa alayhi salam was not divine. They did not believe in the divinity of Isa alayhi salam, and they were persecuted because the Romans were the majority and they were in power. So they were pushed, and they actually went to Persia. Some of them went in different areas, and they were pushed to Persia. This is the ones that Salman radhiyallahu came into contact with. And as he sees them worshipping, he actually falls in love with the religion, and he becomes a Christian. Okay, and these were actually the mu'mineen of that time. Okay, they were the believers of that time, where the Christian beliefs were not changed too much at that time. So he becomes a Christian, and then later on, from one teacher to another, he goes, and after one by one they pass away. The last teacher he has tells him, I don't know anyone who is on the truth as I am, except that you should go to the place where the hijrah of the Prophet, the last and final Prophet will be. So he tells him, and then again a long journey. Salman then actually becomes a slave, and he's taken to Khaybar, and then eventually he comes to Medina Munawwara. So he comes to Medina Munawwara, and this is before the hijrah of the Prophet ﷺ. He comes to Medina, he's working as a slave in the date farms for a Jewish man, and then the Prophet ﷺ makes hijrah. When the Prophet ﷺ makes hijrah, he goes forth, and his last teacher had told him that this area where the Prophet ﷺ, the last Prophet will come, will be a place of date palms and lava rocks. So he tells him this, and when he sees this, and when he comes to Medina, he actually realizes this. Now what was left was the 3 signs that he had also given him about the Prophet ﷺ. So he says that, number 1, that he will not eat from sadaqah, will not eat from charity. Number 2, he will eat from gifts. If you give him a gift, he will eat from that. And number 3 is that he has the seal of the Khatam Nubuwa, he has on his back. So Salman radhiyallahu anh tests him the first 2 days, and then one of the days where the Prophet ﷺ was digging a grave and he was inside, Salman was making his rounds trying to see the back of the Prophet ﷺ, and Rasulullah ﷺ realizing, or through wahi was told what happened, what he was looking for. So he says, you're looking for this, and he takes off his garment, upper garment, and Salman radhiyallahu anh sees the seal of prophethood, and that's when he becomes Muslim. So Salman radhiyallahu anh is in Medina Munawwara. He's a Muslim now, and in the battle of Khandaq, this is where I believe it was Battle of Khandaq is the first battle he actually joined, because before that he was a slave, so he was not able to go out and defend the Muslims and fight alongside with the Prophet ﷺ because of the slavery. But by this time he was saying, that's also another miracle that happened, where the date palms were planted, and within a month or so, or a period of time, the trees were fully grown, giving dates. So that's a miracle that we'll talk again at another time. So Salman radhiyallahu anh is the one who gives this shura, this counsel of digging the trench. Now the size and the location of this trench, we know that it's approximately about 2 kilometers long, and we know Medina is bigger than that, right? So Medina Munawwara was protected. I think I talked about this before in the Battle of Uhud, where Medina Munawwara is naturally protected on 2 sides by the volcanic rocks, or the lava rocks. So there's a volcanic area to the east and west of Medina Munawwar, which is called Harratan, or Harra Sharqiyya, Harra Gharbiya. So the east and west lava area. And because of these lava rocks and these areas, they're very, the way it's situated and stuff, basically animals are not able to go through freely, they're not able to march through. So this large army would have not been able to march through that area. So naturally it's protected from the east and west. To the south of Medina, Medina was protected by what? What was to the south of Medina? Jabal Eid, yeah, but that's far. That's actually, that's outside of the hudud. But it's basically the date farms. Okay, so the abundance of date farms to the south of Medina, and that's actually where the Jewish tribes also lived. So their fortresses and their places and stuff. Well, actually, one tribe left, but still, that was where they were, and there was a bunch of date farms there. So because of the trees and the density of the farms and whatnot, you're not able to come through that way. So the only way that they could come in was from the north, and that's why in the Battle of Uhud I talked about how the kuffar had come around and to the north where Jabal Uhud is, and that's where they came, and that's where the battle took place. So they had to come from the north, and the Prophet ﷺ decides to build this trench starting from Jabal Sila. Jabal Sila is actually right next to the Haram, walking distance. I would say maybe less than 10-minute walk. You could see it's like basically to the north, and that's where the Masjid Sabah Masajid. I'll talk about that in a minute, inshallah. But basically, Jabal Sila, this is right next to the Masjid Nabawi. Excuse me. So Jabal Sila is actually they would use this mountain for calling out. Like for example, if there was an announcement to be made or something like that, they would climb up to that mountain and they would talk or in a loud voice or explain whatever they need to do, and the voice would reach far distances because of the height of that and being close to Medina. So Jabal Sila, they started from there, and it went all the way to, I believe it was Medina Mall. That's I've heard that Medina Mall is approximately the location where it ended. So it's around 2 kilometers from there, from Jabal Sila to that area. And every 10 men had 10 dhira, 10 meters, about 10 meters, which is about 30 some feet. Every 10 men had this area that they were responsible for, and they had to dig. So they were, the land was separated that way. Also, it was 9 feet deep, about 3 meters deep, so that anybody who tries to get into the Khandaq and try to climb out, it's going to be very difficult for them to climb out of the Khandaq. Also, the Muslims will be there to cut them down. Anybody trying to climb up, they'll be able to have the height advantage, and they'll be able to cut them down. It was 5 meters wide, so about 15 feet wide, so no one is able to jump over. Okay, so, and we'll talk about some incidents that happened when some people actually did manage to jump over, and we'll talk about that some other time, inshallah. So being 9 feet deep, actually it's also mentioned in the books of Tariq that they actually even found moisture, the water underneath. So when they started digging that deep, they started getting moisture at the bottom of the Khandaq. Now, this Khandaq being dug at this place at Jabal Salah, we have a masjid there, is nearby, basically right at the you could say at the foot of the mountain. It's called Sab'a Masajid. So I'm sure if you've gone to Medina Munawwara, you've seen this. Now there's a jamia there, it's called Jami' Sab'a Masajid, where it's one big jami masjid, a huge masjid. And basically why it was called Sab'a Masajid, there were 7 masjids built there by the Ottomans because of where the tents were, where the different Sahaba were camped. So we have, for example, there's a Masjid Ali ibn Abi Talib, which is the furthest. It's to the right of the Jami Masjid. And then you have Masjid Umar ibn Khattab. These 2 masjids are still there. These 2 masjids are still there. And then next to that you have Masjid Abu Bakr Siddiq, which was there. I've seen it myself, I think like 10 years ago. That's when they demolished that masjid. And then after that they have Masjid Salman al-Farsi, and then on top of the hill there's Masjid al-Fath. And we'll talk about what the significance of that, inshallah, some other time also. So these 7 masjids were there. So again, they dug the Khandaq from there all the way to the other side. Naturally, you have the lava sides, the two lava rock area to the east and west, and then you have to the south, you have the date palm trees of the Jewish tribes, and also the Muslims having the lush and dense date farms over there. Regarding the lava, there's this one side incident I want to talk about, is that the lava itself, the volcano, it was active at that time, and some say it's still active. Allahu alam, but the last time that the volcano erupted was around 1,000 years ago, around 900 some years ago, or 1,000 years ago, where it erupted in Medina. And then there was also a time in the time of Umar bin Khattab, excuse me, in the time of Umar bin Khattab radhiyallahu anhu, where that volcano erupted. And the reason I want to talk about this was that there was a Sahabi, and he's actually they say the only Sahabi that has met Dajjal. Okay, the hadith of, anybody know his name? Tamim ad-Dari. Tamim ad-Dari radhiyallahu anhu was the one who met Dajjal, and Tamim ad-Dari radhiyallahu anhu, he's the one who, at the time of Umar bin Khattab radhiyallahu anhu, Umar radhiyallahu anhu comes to the house of Tamim radhiyallahu anhu. He's banging on the door, and he comes out. He says, "What's happening?" Like, he thought maybe someone attacked or something, emergency. He says, "Yes, the volcano has erupted, and I need you to come with me to stop it." So he says, "Man ana wa ma ana." Like, what am I going to do? Why are you trying to get me? Or what am I supposed to do? He says, just come with me. The Prophet ﷺ told me to get you, so I'm going to come with you. You're going to come with me. So he goes, and Tamim ad-Dari radhiyallahu anhu, with his hand motion, he actually stops, making dua and asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help. And with his hand motion, he stops the lava, and he actually pushes it back to where it came, where it had erupted, where the volcano erupted from, and had stopped the lava from reaching Medina Munawwara at that time. So, going on, one other thing I want to mention was that we have the Sabah Masajid from Banu Seerah going all the way to around where Medina Mall is, 2 kilometers. So basically, that will cover the area, the open area, and basically there was no way for the kuffar to enter into Medina Munawwara. Now, the only side that they could enter from was from the southern side, even though it would be difficult. But if the Jewish tribes, the tribe had gone against the treaty that they had with the Muslims, if they betrayed the Prophet ﷺ, then basically the kuffar could have entered in from there. And we'll learn about that betrayal inshallah later. So the Prophet ﷺ, thinking about this, he ordered that the women be sent, all of them sent. So while the men are digging the trench, all the women go, and they go to a fortress that Banu Haritha, one of the Ansari tribes, had built. Again, living with the Jewish tribes for so long and seeing their methods and their tactics, they saw that this fortress thing works. So Banu Haritha had actually a fortress in Medina. So all the women and children were sent to that fortress so that they are protected. So inshallah we'll learn about the betrayal of Banu Qaynuqa. We'll learn about them inshallah, and Banu Qurayza. We'll learn about that betrayal of that inshallah in the sessions to come inshallah. So we'll stop there. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursaleen walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.